Boring.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. We come to you live every night, well, every weeknight at midnight Eastern. I think 500 shows in, I would figure that out. That's 9 p.m. Pacific for about an hour each night. We talk about guns, and we have hosts. We got Angelina jumping in from California. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
The only actual host here tonight, besides myself, in Tucson, but we have some guest hosts jumping in. Thanks for joining us, guys. We got Dead Horse jumping in from Utah.
Howdy.
Thanks for joining. I think you're in the middle of eating, so keep going. And then we got Ghost jumping in from Arkansas. Thanks for jumping in.
That would be AR, Kansas. Thanks for having me.
And then Tardot, you're in Texas.
How's it going?
Thanks for jumping in. So we were just over in Clover's chat, and it was pretty decent chat for a Friday. And then my thing's been being weird. Most of the time when somebody's ready to go on gun channels, you know how to say like 10 minutes waiting, whatever, and then it counts down and then it goes live. You know, and with Edges, it doesn't do that. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but I was sitting there waiting for Edge, and then finally texted him and said, "When are you going live?" Like, we've been live. So I refreshed, and sure enough. So I don't know if anybody's had that trouble with particular ones. I know I had a trouble earlier jumping into one that Desmos that audio wasn't working. But anyway.
Sometimes even on the Daily Gun Show, when you guys go live, it doesn't refresh, and I have to refresh the page, and then it'll start. That's happened to me on pretty much everyone's channel. It doesn't happen all the time, but it is a thing.
Okay, yeah. So that's why I've been throwing in there live. You know, the YouTube side usually kicks in, but so again, thanks for jumping in. We've had some pretty good shows today. Edge is live right now, so we're corking him. But it's Friday, and we usually talk about the industry. I didn't even bring up my notes today. Let's see where my notes are at.
Got no notes, got no nothing.
Yeah, but look how many hosts we got.
It's a Friday free-for-all.
Tactical Friday.
You did bring the C team with you, so I mean, you know, there's that.
Yeah, that's 2-bit content creators.
Well, I mean, it's Gun Biz Friday, so
Yeah, exactly.
Gun Biz, what does the Gun Biz mean to you?
Why does it say Dicker in here?
Where?
For gun tech alternative topics.
Or should it does?
What does that mean?
I don't know. I didn't do it. Bob probably did it.
Maybe I meant Dicker?
Maybe you meant Dicker.
Dicker isn't a word, though. It is. Engage in a petty argument. I don't know. That's just Dicker, maybe?
I don't know. Let's roll with it. Just
Treat
make it up.
something casually. Dicker around with something. I guess that's a word.
Oh, yeah, like dick around. I say that all the time.
Anyhow, so it is Gun Biz Friday. So I don't know. Does anybody have any Gun Biz topics? We were talking about NRA show a little bit earlier. We're going to be talking about the tour over at the Jam Davis. So it's good that Ghost and Tardot are in here. They both took the tour with me. Everybody else.
I suck. Apparently.
We had a question come up from Open Face Sandwich Man over there, asking our take on the Military Arms Channel not real activist protest at the NRA. Do you think it's a kick in the pants that will prove positive, or is it something that further weakens the NRA and is bad for the second? Sort of like more infighting gives 2A people a talking point. They could say even the gun guys hate the NRA. So I think that's a good one. It is sort of industry related and it's timely.
That's exactly what I think, G, is I think that the media, the liberal media, is going to spin this and use it to divide and conquer us. I can just imagine the type of stories they're going to have on liberal news media outlets about gun owners protesting the NRA and stuff like that, and the way they're going to try and spin that. And so I think overall it's going to be bad for the industry. I think what's good for the industry is more lifetime members, voting members of the NRA, and change the board members on the NRA, the ones that we don't like, the ones that are saying those things that, that we don't like to hear. Well, let's vote them out. I mean, they're not some kind of ultimate force that's irremovable, from the NRA. We can easily vote them out and vote someone that, that we agree with, onto that board.
I mean, I'm no expert on NRA internal workings or nothing, but just watching some of those conversations that have been going around, like at the end of last year, I guess, that long ago already, where they were concerned about that concept, right? Could vote them from the inside or whatever, but the board, I guess, even if, let's say, you had perfect situation and everyone was dissatisfied with the status quo and everybody gets voted out and we have a new regime in there, you still got LaPierre and Cox that are main. What's the deal? They're supposed to be majority shareholders, so they make the most money from it. They're also the president and the director, so I guess they override the board. And I think that's where the potential is, right? To get the membership to the point where they're like, I guess, motivated to say, get rid of these two figureheads. We want an actual representative group here again. An actual club.
Well, and we do have some good members on the NRA board, like Ted Nugent. He's an NRA board member. Like, there are some good. Not all the board. Not even all the board members are bad.
No, and aren't there the board members?
The problem is there's 75 board members. The unfortunate thing with what's having the 75 board members is they have an executive committee that actually does most of the governing. So I don't even know what kind of power the 75 board members have.
As far as
their powers to vote is that they vote on topics. Like if they want to give, let's say if the NRA wants to start a new program, some kind of youth marksmanship program somewhere, they vote on those topics. That's what the board
but
does.
there's no vote audit, so they don't. The executive board can take the vote, but they don't have to do anything the voters say. I mean, they don't have an audit, so who knows?
Plus, you're looking at with 75 members, it's easy to drown out, the 5, 10. That may be a positive vote that we are looking for. I think with those protests possibly going on with the NRA show, we've talked about it before. This is pretty much an industry show. It's for the public. You got your ILA meetings. That's where those conversations really need to happen, and I think that's the biggest point is. Holding the protest is great. Getting your point across is great, but they need to do it to a point that you're actually going to get FaceTime or get in front of those people that you want to affect. Going to the actual show that's going to be happening on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and trying to protest, just like Dead Horse was saying, you're just possibly giving liberal media a bunch of, bits to sit there and throw out on the news for that night.
I get to the devil's advocate side of this and say that the protests could bring some good, and the liberal media is not. Let's be honest, guys. The liberal media is not going to paint anything about the NRA show positive anyway. So what does it matter what they're going to say? They're not going to paint it great. I think that if you had a protest, then the arrogance of the top echelon in NRA sees that. Man, there's a lot of people that are pissed off, and they see the numbers in the last 6 months have dropped off. Maybe they start thinking, well, our numbers have dropped off, and there's a massive amount of people here that are willing to protest at our own show. Maybe it's more serious than we thought.
Well, that's where I think I'm more like that. So not even devil's advocate, but the media needs the NRA. They go out of their way really to simplify everything to the NRA is the bad guy. The NRA is the entire industry. The industry is so much bigger than the other influencers and lobbyists, right? So if they were to chisel away at that, they'd be chiseling away at their own position that the NRA represents all of us. or the NRA is the bad guy. But I guess you could say, well, even the membership hates them, I guess, but I don't know how much they would actually get with that. But on the other hand, I don't care what the media says. I don't care what they say about what if we should own an AR-15 or anything else. So I think if it's time for us to take care of our own business, I'm not worried about what somebody says. If it's time to spank your kid, right? You spank your kid, and then you worry about what somebody worried about their opinion that you're spanking your kid, right? You take care of your own, and then you figure out, okay, did I spank them at McDonald's or at home? You know.
Well, just because the NRA is 5 million members, over 5 million members, who deemed them? I want to know what gun owner said, you know what, the NRA is in control of all of our gun lobbying, and they're in charge of that. Like, I don't remember anyone actually putting them in charge. So, you know, when I think of the NRA, I think of marksmanship and certification and gun safety stuff. You know, not necessarily lobbying for, you know, against laws or to pass certain laws. So, like, who decided to put them in charge? Like, as far as I know, they're not in charge. Like any other group, like Gun Owners of America or any other group, can step up and surpass them in you know, in members, and, you know, and take the forefront.
Well, I think a lot of us have mentioned in previous chats that I actually don't mind the NRA being the punching bag. Let the NRA take the punches from the media and from the liberal side, and let them be the quote unquote face of the gun community. And then while they're doing that, then that's a perfect opportunity for GOA and SAF to come in from the flank and maybe do some more good. Let the NRA be the punching bag. They're probably accustomed to it by now.
So, like, there are infantry, right? Their job is to be there to block and to make sure that people can't just walk, right in the front door. Well, we got the GOA. I'm going to call them the Marines, and so many Marines are fond of them. They're out there doing more strategic strikes with a little more muscle. So you have multiple things. I don't know, maybe you should have done it in battleships and submarines or something. Like, we have multiple tools at our disposal for doing different tasks. We should consider our groups the same way, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that if the media and everybody else and the Democratic Party, they want to sit there and assume that the NRA is the entire community and they want to throw all their punches at them, let them, because the NRA has been doing it for years. Let them take the punches. And then that allows, like you said, that allows little attack forces, whether it's a GOA, the SAF, all these other, different organizations to, hey, the spotlight's not on us. Let's go around, sneak from behind and attack them from behind while the NRA's taking all the forward push. They're big enough. They can handle that kind of, like you said, they can handle that ground fight. Then we can go with the little assault teams and then really get some stuff done, hopefully.
But the problem is when they're going to stand there and compromise and give shit away like the bump stocks and others, and they're going to allow the National Reciprocity to be shelved. They're going to allow Peer Suppressing Act or SHUSH to be shelved, and that's where they're.
Oh yeah, it's not a perfect storm by any means.
If they stand there and help, I'm okay. But at the same time, we only have a certain window in order to have their ear when they're listening, when they've spent a bunch of money to present something to a town that it sounds like the mayor doesn't even want them there. So, they've definitely got vulnerable. This is the time when we have their ear. And even if I don't believe that the media is necessarily looking for ways to rip apart the NRA, they need the NRA. There's definitely that perception that the NRA might have that they need to be on their P's and Q's. And if we can use that as a way to leverage more volume for our message, again, it means a lot when people are willing to put on a t-shirt and travel to Dallas, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing what the consequences are going to be positive in the long run. But again, when we talk about the benefit of these actions, right, the NRA is a bunch of people who are watching what's going on. And if they get reports back after this thing that hundreds of people showed up, that's different than if thousands of people showed up. And that's certainly different than if tens of thousands of people showed up with not real activist shirts. If tens of thousands of people show up with that shirt that costs $25, I expect to see tents and water provided by the people selling them shirts. But that would a massive showing of solidarity amongst their members that were not satisfied with the figureheads, right? So I think it's going to be an interesting show for sure. I don't know if we have any more answers on that.
Well, I think no matter what the outcome is, it's definitely going to be a really cool sign of activism, whether it's NRA being activists or the community itself being activists. We can be activists within our own community, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people are willing to put those T-shirts on. We think that a lot of people are going to show up, but there might be 100 people that show up. But it's going to be really interesting to see how many people are actually willing to do that, stick their nose out there, knowing there is a chance. I'm not saying they're going to, but there's a chance that you're escorted out of the building. But I think that makes a huge statement. Yeah, absolutely.
I've noticed that a lot of people have been jumping on the bandwagon and of the boycott the NRA or not real activist stuff, and excluding YouTube content creators. All these people who I see jumping on the bandwagon, every single one that I've asked, hey, did you buy the $500 lifetime GOA membership? Have you joined any other group? The answer is always the same. No, I haven't joined anything. I don't belong to anything. And I just don't get that. Like, so you're going to jump on a bandwagon of boycotting the NRA, but you're not going to, be an activist yourself and support any other kind of pro-gun rights organization?
Let me jump in right there, Dead Horse. Now that's a big issue. You brought up one comment that I was kind of letting everybody go through. You're talking about who made the NRA, pretty much who made the NRA king of activism for the gun rights side. Nobody really made them as far as saying, here, you are the ones that will be the activists for everyone. What happened is you had the majority of people joining the NRA and then going, you know what, I don't have to do anything else. And that's the downside, is you can throw money at these organizations, yes, but you're still not being completely an activist just by saying, here's money to the GOA or here's money to the NRA. There comes a point where, like what Ghost and G are kind of talking about, you've got to either step up to these organizations that we're funding to let them know, hey, you've got to do your job. I'm paying you for a reason. But at the same time, you need to take that time to put your own voice out there to the politicians, to Washington or your local governments, and say, y'all aren't doing what I voted you in for. This is what I want. This is what doesn't need to happen, does need to happen. The gun legislation, we've seen it with the bump stock comments and everything else. You've got to have these people that are putting their voice out there themselves, because the politicians are used to hearing from the NRA and all of these activist organizations. They're not going to be quite as used to getting thousands or millions of comments and everything else. They're going to start seeing that their voting population there that has voted them in office don't want them doing certain things, or do want them to do other things. So to be an actual activist doesn't mean you just go and fund an organization. You need to do your part at the same time.
Well, let's also remember, by the time we get done with NRA next week, we'll have a little over a month to for the ATF comments also. So we got to start pushing that pretty hard when we get back from NRA, because it'll be about a month, a little over a month and a half maybe, to get those comments to the ATF. So that's something we also got to push when we get back.
Is there any other gun rights group that has as many youth programs or as many certification programs or safety programs or marksmanship programs as the NRA?
Not even close.
CMP, Appleseed CMP.
But they don't have as many, do they? I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of them that have training and certification, but not to the extent that the NRA does, I don't think.
Right, but they would be the next. There are others, but yeah, you're right. They're bigger.
But that's my big argument about the NRA, though, is too, you got to, like you were talking about with Chris Cox and Wayne LaPierre, you've got to really take into perspective that the people, when you've got the NRA, you've got your different divisions of the NRA. And that's where I talk about getting your voice and your protests in front of the right people. We talk about the NRA. Well, the problem within that NRA is the ILA. It is Chris Cox. It is Wayne LaPierre. So if they're not, more or less, if they're not paying attention, your protest kind of falls on deaf ears, or you're protesting the wrong side of the organization. Not to say that they won't notice, but you've got to be able to hit that certain group and make sure they notice what you're doing.
There's a pause here. So I'm watching the YouTube channel or the YouTube comments, and it was a while back said, Black Hat said, as for national reciprocity, it never stood a chance of passing the Senate. So did the bump stock ban ever have a chance the first 100 times they put it up? No. You pass things by consistently trying, and eventually then they get the votes and it goes through. So one way to make sure that it never goes through is to never even try. And one way to make sure that you never even try is to not hold the representatives responsible, have consequences for their lack of effort. Not doing something is a decision. They don't get to say, oh, well, we were gonna, because they didn't. They decided to put it off and not do it. So I'm not the biggest fan of national reciprocity myself, but I am a big fan of holding representatives responsible for their actions. And again, if we do nothing as the Second Amendment community, then that's basically reinforcing to them, we can do whatever we want to them. They're law-abiding and polite. They'll take it. Slap them again. They'll take it.
Unfortunately, we've been taking it for a lot of years.
So what do you think is the best way to get to let the NRA know and to actually influence change in the NRA, that we want a more, this is the term, this isn't my term, but this is the term that I've heard many people use, is that we want less FUD and more Nugent. And I've heard that sort of term used a lot, that's what we want the NRA to be. Well, how do we affect that? I've heard people saying that about the NRA for the last 10 years.
Well, I think realistically, NRA is what? Next weekend. So it's not tomorrow, but it is the weekend after. So it is literally 7 days from today, right? The 4th it's starting. At this point, we're so close to it. We're going to find out, because it's going to be the biggest opportunity that we've had since the October Revolt back in the 70s for disgruntled membership to hold to task the leadership of the organization. And I don't think it's going anywhere. It's the biggest organization, like you said. It does all the training. It's solid. It's older than all of them. Chris Cox and Pierre ain't. They're just rich dudes at the top. And, they're not going to last forever. Something's got to make them change, and maybe it'll be a more powerful board.
So how could we pull off another revolt? How did they do that back in the 70s? Some people might not even know about that revolt.
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a book written about it. We had the son of the guy who did it, right? Cox on here, Chris Cox, and we had Neil Cox on? Chris Cox or Neil was the dad. So the dad did the thing. He wrote a book about it, and when we had the son on talking to him for Every Second Matters and on the Daily Gun Show one time, he was telling us that it is explained in the book, the details leading up to it and the consequences of the October Revolt. And I just never had a chance to read the book, which was on audio tape.
I've got a friend of mine that is a newly elected board member of the NRA, and I've been going back and forth with her the last couple of days. And one of the things that was brought up, and she said that it's actually going to be a talking point, is that there is a possibility that they discuss when you re-up your NRA membership and you donate money to the NRA online or whatever, that they're supposed to be bringing up a way that you can, I'm not saying dictate, but you can ask them that your money goes to a certain arm of the NRA. So if that does come to fruition, then I think what a lot of us probably need to do is sit there and say, I want my money to be earmarked for education, or I want my money to be earmarked for training, and force them to possibly split the ILA from the NRA and not let all the funds, the 95% of the funds that funnels to the NRA, to go strictly to the ILA, because as long as that happens, the ILA is going to do what they want to do, regardless of what the membership wants. But if you're able to earmark your money for a specific thing, and they get a message saying, man, they're not funding the ILA at all, they must not like what we're doing, maybe that's a way.
Hosh just jumped in from California. Angelina hasn't said much, so being behind enemy lines, so to speak, you guys are used to dealing with stuff. How does the NRA fit into this? They usually leave you hanging.
I get a lot of most of my correspondence comes from the CRPA and things like Cal Guns, which CRPA is, I guess, one of the arms of the NRA. They're closely affiliated with the NRA in California. And so I get messages from them, and they talk about upcoming whatever court cases or what they're trying to pursue to stop in California, like our ammunition registration stuff that we're going through right now. Like, I just got an email from them on that, on talking about like, hey, we're looking for money, we need help, blah, blah, blah. Mostly like that. That's a lot of what I get.
I think in general they do leave us hanging. So, like Hosh, I'm partial to like Cal guns and all that kind of stuff over the NRA.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like, I mean, the NRA is kind of fighting battles that aren't California. Like, I feel like they don't really care a whole lot about California.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, I mean, since California has been in the forefront of some of the strictest gun control the nation's seen, when those bills were going through, was the NRA ever there to protest? I mean, were they there in California trying to help the situation, or were they just gone?
I never saw them.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, they make campaign donations to the people that they like, right? So, and they're obviously not making, campaign donations to some Democrat running in California. So I do believe they have helped California, but they also have 49 other states to worry about.
Right.
And when you're looking at, like, let's say a state like California that already has so many restrictions, and then you're comparing it to a state like Utah that doesn't have really any restrictions, and then all of a sudden an anti-gun bill comes up in Utah, yes, I do see the NRA standing up and fighting and lobbying and making campaign donations and doing stuff like that. I do see it, and I think they have done that in California, but, they have to spread that out between 50 states, right?
Also, it kind of is worth mentioning that they will get no help, really, from the elected officials in California, because there's pretty much a super majority of anti-gun people in California. The only way they can go is the judicial rights violation. That's really their only way of going forward. And that generally goes very slowly, because it's going to go through the local courts, and then it's going to go to the circuit level courts, and then it may just sit in the Supreme Court and never be touched. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the money is going somewhere, and I think people get frustrated because they don't understand how slow the judicial side of government moves. Very slowly.
Well, you've also got the Ninth Circuit out there, which is a crazy bad court to begin with. But I got a question for you, Hosh, and for Angelina. So the NRA obviously is not the biggest influence in California. Have you seen over the years, has a GOA or the SAF, have they been helpful at all in California?
Here's a list of people who are helpful in California. Pretty much only Firearms Policy Coalition. They constantly go up to bat. They're constantly at the courthouse. They're constantly, putting out information and trying to get everyone educated and trying to be really boots on the ground for Pro 2A individuals in California. And like I think Dead Horse said, they have 49 other states to worry about. Yep, absolutely. And Firearms Policy Coalition worries about every single one of those states. But they really fight for California because, as someone that has a legal background, I know that precedent plays a huge part in what will trickle down to the rest of this country if you allow every state to become like California, New York, Maryland, and all those other shitty states, like this. Yep. This is a union. We're a union. We're not individual countries, so we all need to be looking out for everyone else. So what happens in California needs to offend you as much as if it happened in your own backyard, because one day it will, because fuck California, right?
Well, you made a great point. Is if it happens in California, then it can happen anywhere. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah, and that's why it's not like, one of the things that really pisses me off is when people are like, oh, stupid California. Yeah, stupid California, but guess what? That's going to be That's going to be stupid Arizona, and that's going to be stupid Texas if you don't fight for California. California's gun rights are everybody's problem. The things that happen here, they're everybody's problem. You know, John Z told us a little bit about what happens in New York City. Guess what? That's, you know, Phoenix in 2 years.
Well, and see, that's a really good point too, is, you know, Dead Horse was making the comment about, like, the comment's been made a few times about NRA supposed to be worrying about 50 states. This is very true. But when an anti-gun legislation, for instance, comes up in Texas or Utah or Wyoming or somewhere into that extent where it's a little bit easier to fight, it's a less of a chance that it's going to make it through and win. Why would we put a lot of effort? You know, you still want to put the effort there, but it's not going to take as much effort there as it would for California. I think the NRA should make a point to focus on California. Yeah, they may have to go that judiciary route. They may have to go through court. It may take years to get a legal precedence from, you know, Supreme Court, somewhere else, but that's exactly what you said. Legal precedence is the major factor.
Yeah,
you know, we can get it. Oh, go ahead.
I thought you were done. Yeah, the problem is, as Angelina already said, they'll use precedents to beat somebody over the head like a cudgel, because the concept of the Ninth Circuit is something that extends to all the states in the union. There's multiple circuit courts. So as your appeals go up the ranks, they can cite California as being judicial policy or precedent, right? And then it would require going all the way up to the Supreme Court. Again, it's this concept that because the judicial system takes so long, all they need to do is get the law in place, and then years go by and people forget about it. And the fervor, just like the liberals say, the fervor over these mass shootings goes away relatively quickly. A lot of the fervor goes away with gun rights when people don't really understand how they're affected. And they just assume, oh, it's always been this way, so let's just keep carrying on.
Well, and you guys are talking about, you know, like, you know, Angelina brought up about the Firearms Policy Coalition really fighting for California. I see the NRA fighting for California. Yesterday, they filed another lawsuit for California. Last year, they filed 5 lawsuits challenging gun laws in California. They support smaller organizations like the California Pistol and Rifle Association.
Yeah, that's
Who
right.
do you think's funding them to go fight in California?
Well, that's what I said.
Their members, or do you think it's the NRA donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to the California Pistol and Rifle Association to fight those?
Well,
so the NRA donates a lot of money to these smaller organizations, and then you only hear about these smaller organizations fighting, and you're like, oh, this is the only thing doing anything. Well, the NRA is funding them. So aren't they doing something?
Not just funding, but giving resources and networking and support in other ways. Yeah, like at Bloomberg.
That is, when I said the CRPA, that's who you're talking about. And I just
exactly, and the NRA funds them.
Yeah, but put your big fancy name behind it. Put the name that makes everyone turn their fucking head.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of an interesting point. So the CRPA is not wholly funded by the NRA. In no way is that true. The CRPA has a very large membership, lots of hunters in the CRPA, and I actually know the chairperson for hunters' rights in the CRPA, at least as of 2 years ago, he was. So I hear what you're saying. I get it, and I don't necessarily agree what Angelina's saying that having the NRA put their name behind it is any better or worse, but the byproduct is still going to be the same. It's going to get caught up in the courts on purpose by the judicial and slow down. So they can create as many lawsuits as they want, but it just gets gummed up in the works by design because it's all full of liberals. Actually, I don't even care about the comment liberal. They're anti-gun. The people they're gumming up the works, they're anti-gun. They know that they can stall this thing out for a very long time, just burning it out in the process. And that's what they do.
Well, yeah, and there's a whole legal theory around paperwork, because the more paperwork there is, the more paper there is to shuffle through. Guess what? That takes longer. And while you're doing that, nothing else is happening.
Right. And that's hence why we have some of these stupid laws about your annual ammunition license, purchasing ammunition. Why do they do that? So it'll de-incentivize people from wanting to participate. They just need to make it hard enough. They can't ban it. Can't ever ban anything, because if you ban it, then people freak out. You just, turn up the heat a little bit. Just keep notching it up. We always talk about this. It's the boiling the frog.
So I like this cartoon that sums it up pretty good, I think, as far as the California end of it. And I think Horse brings up some good points, though. The NRA is definitely more influential than just money. The money is a portion of it, but they're not loaded. They've got contributions from us. They're paying poor LaPierre. He barely has enough to support his different interests. So, there's that, and then like I was saying, the networking and the other support, the facilitation of efforts and the coordination of efforts that I'm sure they're involved in. But we're all in the same boat as far as things go, literally. And if you don't believe what happens in California leaches out, then how do you explain Oregon, Washington, Colorado's magazine laws, Nevada, state like Nevada having universal background checks? Universal background checks are up on the ballot in Arizona. A bunch of kids went in and yelled at the governor of Arizona, and we don't have bump stocks here, something like that. So nothing safe, and precedent, like you're saying, is exactly why what happens in California or New York or whatever is constantly at risk for the rest of us, right? That's why they say eternal vigilance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we started out with NRA show and what we thought this year was going to be as far as as the commotion or the reaction to the not real activists. I just found out from Clover's show that Yankee said he's not going. So that means Military Arms Channel will be the big one there. I guess Eric, Iraqi veterans, going. Has anybody seen that video?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, him and Force from Freedom guy, the three of them.
So there's a couple of big hitters that'll go there and wear their shirts, and then, like I say, it'll be to be determined to see how many people actually show up with the shirts and interest in walking around civilly, trying to change people's minds and make people aware. It's an excellent effort, and like I say, it'll be interesting to see. Do we know anybody that's going to wear NRA shirts, not real activist shirts?
I am.
Okay, we got one.
I am at least one of the days.
All right, so what about we could jump to some fun stuff and do the gun shop of the day?
You know what's fun is the member of the day. So every day we try to figure out one of the members over at Gun Channels and what the hell, you feature them? Yeah. So we're going to do that. And this week we were featuring their YouTube channel. So it's Heavy today. I don't know if I didn't see an Instagram video asking if he should make a live chat tonight. I also didn't see a live chat from him, so I guess he didn't do one. I think every other Friday he used to do them, so maybe he's on that schedule right now. Anyway, Heavy's dude that we met up with in California a long time ago, me and Smeggy, and then he moved out here to Arizona, and I have not met up with him since he doesn't ever hang out with us when we're in Arizona now. But I think it's because he works all the time, and I think he's been back fit, creating content and hanging out in Match Chat most Mondays. I think most people know Heavy, but if you don't, check him out. Heavy B, I guess, actually. There you go. Nobody has anything to say about Heavy. They all agree. If you don't have anything positive to say.
Oh, Heavy's a good dude. I like Heavy.
Okay, there you go. At least the Marine.
Yeah, Heavy's a good guy.
He's a brother. I gotta like him.
I have to like him. I acknowledge that I have to like him. All right, so at that, we'll do a gun shop of the day. That means Angelina and I get the day off because that means we have a guest host. So let's see, Tardot, you're getting the hot seat today. You got a gun shop you can recommend? Or to feature one every day here?
Sure. Yeah, there's actually one locally here that is it's called Target Master, and it's one we actually go to pretty frequently. They've got actually a range on site. It's got I believe it's 15 pistol ranges, and it's like 6 rifle lanes. And they actually have a decent, very decent sized gun shop, and they've got a lot of stock in. And they usually have some pretty nice little guns. I'd have to pull it up, see if I'd be able to screen share to be able to pull up their site. But they have a website with some few little pictures of their range and everything else up. It's called Target Masters.
The right
just
one?
Target Masters. No, it's got an S on the end. It is Target Masters, and it's in Garland, Texas.
There we go. That's it.
There you go.
Okay.
Now, yeah, they're a little bit behind. They're a little dated. They don't have like the, you see a lot of the newer ranges have like plexiglass and stuff on them. They've been there for years, but it's a great little range. And yeah, like you saw there, you got Blackjack. That's their little mascot they got running around. It's an old police drug dog. We went up there.
Nice.
What was that?
That's a huge place. That looks awesome.
Yeah, and they do, and they've got everything there. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many guns, and it's awesome because you also get a lot of, like you can see, they've got animals from just different hunters that have sold to them that there's some there you can actually buy. There's some that are just, it's kind of like a museum of stuffed animals that people have gotten. It's got, I'm trying to think, it's got everything and anything you could ever really need in there.
This dog looks almost as big as that bear right there.
He is. We go up there pretty frequently, and that dog is. I'm 6'3". That dog stands up on his hind legs. He's almost as tall as I am.
CHL LTC Beyond LTC license to carry.
Yeah, they do. They do offer the license to carry class. They also offer some beginners courses, if I remember right. They're teamed up with a few people that do the licensing classes that'll come up to the shop and do the licensing classes themselves. And then of course the Beyond LTC is more of your after you've gotten your basics, your training.
Right on. $15 gun rentals. That's not that bad.
And I'll tell you this much about that shop, and I'm glad you're bringing stuff up that I keep forgetting. But yeah, I'm glad you said that, because the $15 gun rentals there, it's awesome because it is a $15 gun rental, and you bring your gun back after you're done shooting it, and you can actually just off that $15 continue to just, I want to shoot this one. I want to shoot that one.
Is that rare? I feel like that's pretty standard out here, even in California.
Yeah,
there's some people I hear saying that you've got to pay per gun. So
really?
That's why I'm bringing that up. Yeah, I hear it sometimes. The other thing I hear that this place is a little bit apparent. Well, I'm not going to say it's rare or different, but they do $18 per day. Mm-hmm. Some people say that they have to pay per hour. Some people say they have to pay, however much, per hour or whatever for their ranges. Well, this one is actually, you pay $18. You can shoot right then, leave, go eat lunch, come back and shoot some more.
Huh.
Yeah. For $33, you can shoot all day and all sorts of different guns too.
Yeah, exactly. Because that basically says one gun out at a time. So you could pay $30 and take 2 guns out and keep swapping out 2 guns. So you could literally compare them for $30. Like, bang, 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 bang. Okay. Yeah. For $30. Or each person gets one for 15 and do the same thing.
So I guess maybe I've seen it more often in ranges where they also sell firearms. I see that very often where you pay a flat fee for rental, then you can swap out as many guns as you want, because from their point of view, they want to put you in the best gun possible and get you to buy one. So it helps them out, right?
Well, I would hope they want to do that, because if they don't want to do that, then they're going to sell you whatever they can sell you. But I think the great gun shops are going to let you test out as many to make sure you do get the right one, which I think is awesome.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the group there is as helpful as could be. I know Gunpowder went in there looking at some holsters at one time, and there's one lady up there. Gunpowder would probably remember her name, but I don't remember offhand. And her and Gunpowder sat and talked for probably about a half an hour or more, just about the holsters she was looking at and getting fitted and getting some new holsters in. Right. They're as helpful as could be, and they're more than willing to do whatever it takes to get you into a gun that you're going to like and help you make the right decision. And their prices really aren't bad there. they're probably right at about the same as a lot of the market right now.
See, I think that's so important for local gun shops, because you go to a big box store, you're going to have someone who may not be intelligent in firearms. They're just going to be salesmen. If you go to a good gun shop, one, they're going to try to find the right gun and the right holster, because they know that if they put you in the wrong gun, the wrong holster, your first gun, not only are you not going to go back to that store, but you might not ever buy their firearm again. So it's a very important part of the gun community.
I agree.
I think it's got to be win-win. It costs them nothing. They don't care. Most of those places don't even clean their rental guns, right? So all they got to do is watch you take it away for a while and watch you put it back. So it costs them nothing to have you take guns all day. And you go to a range where you can just sit there shooting. Did you see how many they had too? They had a bunch. You could shoot all guns like that. Then why would you ever go to another range? I mean, that's ensuring repeat business, right?
A lot of them
exactly.
like make you give them your driver's license or whatever, or your keys or something like that.
And they don't rent to singles, right?
Yeah, so that's a thing that's recently happened. Is they don't you can't. Yeah, because they're worried about people renting a gun and then going and shooting themselves, because that's happened before a couple of times.
Well, it happens.
What's that?
It happens.
Yeah, but I mean that's one of the reasons they don't allow it. They don't allow single rentals like to one individual.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. That's a cool shop, and it definitely looks interesting. That's one of the other things that I think is neat about some of these shops when we see them, pictures on the web or whatever. You can imagine walking through that shop, you'd probably take a dozen visits before you felt like you kind of even knew where everything was, and then it would take you forever to actually find everything that they actually have.
Oh yeah, as many times as I've been there, and I don't think I've even come close to seeing every gun they have. And of course, they're always getting new stock in, and they do used guns too. So yeah, it's something new every time.
That's a gun shop that I would probably, if I've got time next weekend, I'd probably stop by before I head out of town just to see it. That'd be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
All right, we did a gun shop of the day, so that takes us into something else. Did we start on time? We did.
A little late.
We did this. We did bicker. What the hell did I mean by that? So while I'm trying to figure out what kind of note I left to myself here, why don't we talk about? Oh, we were going to talk about the museum tour. I guess we got 3 people that went on the tour. Why don't we just talk briefly about that tour? So we went to the J.M. Davis Museum for some people, second or third time or more, and Clover, I think, called up and got us the appointment to have a tour. We were escorted around for more than an hour. I think it was 2 hours or more.
It was almost
how long?
It was at least 2 hours between the 2 tours. I mean, we had 2 different guys, but combined it was well over 2 hours.
Yeah, so we had the director of the museum and the curator of the collection. So that was super cool because the director had met Mr. Davis when they still had the hotel and everything. So that was cool to hear his stories. But I'll let you guys tell. It wasn't that great a tour, really. I guess there's probably nothing to say.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a tour as far as I was hoping maybe we were going to see some guns that maybe were not on display. But the cool thing that we got were better stories than what they just had printed out in the card. I mean, we got some background stuff. The curator I really like because I didn't realize that since they're a government entity, they were able to get some NFA items that might have been destroyed, if they didn't get them.
Yeah, the NFA side of it was pretty awesome. And, I got, excited hearing a lot of the stories, not even just the NFA, but just the miscellaneous stuff they had. We saw nooses from, different hangings. I can't remember the guy's name offhand. I'd have to go back through my video, but, he was donating all kinds of nooses and just miscellaneous items that weren't even necessarily firearms that just had a lot of history behind them. Some of it's kind of morbid, but it was an awesome thing to hear that history.
I wish I could have seen that. It looks pretty cool, but I didn't go, so I failed. Uh,
One day we'll get you there.
one day. I don't know if, well, I've been to Oklahoma before,
Hold
but
on. You're going to in a couple of weeks, you'll be going through there. You're going to have time to go through there?
maybe. I mean, I could probably make time.
Monday.
No, I will be in Oklahoma on like a Wednesday.
Well, and one thing to say about that museum that, when we were doing that tour, and that was probably one of the coolest parts, was when we got over to where Mr. Davis and his second wife are buried. And, you come to find out that that's only one of two places where somebody's buried on state grounds, and he's actually buried with pretty much his entire collection. And, that's something awesome. And I think as gun owners, we kind of all would love to strive for in the end.
Well, and he's protected by a Gatling, which is even better.
Seriously. Like, can you imagine as a gun guy who had that collection, like the piece that he's got just sitting there with all his belt-fed shit right around him, his wife, good to go. And then he sees all these people walking through, looking at his shit.
They need to do some overnight tours and see if he haunts the place.
He probably walks around telling you about shit and trying to do deals. Leave me your carry gun and you can take home this Arasaka.
Just the fact that he spent the better part of his life collecting all these guns, it's got to be extremely satisfying for the family to know that there are people every day interested to go look at what is essentially their dad's or their grandpa's gun collection. That's an awesome thing.
I didn't think they asked him that question, if there is any more Davis's.
Yeah, that wasn't a question I was asking. I didn't even think about it, but that would have been a great one to ask.
Well, and even out, kind of outside of the tour, I know they mentioned it on the tour. One of the cool things about that museum too is it wasn't restricted to, say, NFA items or rare items or historical items. Some of the best content I'd got while taping there and while taking pictures were guns that were just weird, is the best way to put it. Whether it was something that somebody tortured in their kitchen through doing some at-home gunsmithing, or if it was just a gun you don't see that often that really never made it anywhere.
Like the dead ends of the various, technology, concepts or ideas for the actions or weird barrel arrangements. Whoa.
Ghost ran away.
We got sick of them, so they can stay for a little while, but not if they just cramp our style. So they probably got NSA'd there, but that'll give us a chance to let people know that Glover was saying that he posted a bunch of his, I don't think it's probably raw, I'm sure it's edited, but his footage from the tour, the actual guided tour part. So got that on his channel on Clover. Yeah.
One of the coolest things, and that was my second time to go there, but one of the coolest things, and Tartar was saying some of the weird guns, I just think that one of the coolest things about the museum is it was never intended to be a rare gun museum. These are just guns that he happened to pick up at yard sales or wherever he was, and it was just collecting guns and preserving these guns forever. And even if they cost him at the time maybe $5, it was just something that it wasn't necessarily meant to be a rare gun museum. It was just normal guns that got used, which is really cool.
What did he do for a living where he was able to afford to acquire so many?
He had a hotel there in Tulsa that was, I guess, a pretty famous hotel.
So back in the days of Route 66, and everybody was driving up and down Route 66 to see the country, and they had the various attractions, the big ball of string or the dinosaurs or the whatever. His was the museum or the hotel with all the guns in it, and the guns you've seen the arrangements of guns on the walls. They're all on display, basically wired to the walls, like the old time guns, on a white background. So it's the silhouettes of all these guns, and they make patterns. That was the decoration. It sounds like not just in the common areas of the hotel, every square foot of the common areas, but also the hallways to the rooms. And it sounds like a few of the rooms were just stockpiles of guns. I guess the ballroom for a while was they had multiple ballrooms. It was a big motel. For a while, one of his ballrooms was just storage for guns and whatnot. So he was basically what would you call that? Like a tourist attraction. So people would come to stay at the motel. But I guess he was also the mayor, and it sounds like he was fairly successful, just in business in general, right?
Yeah, and see, two of my favorite stories, and kind of give you all a preview. One of them was they were talking about one of the hotel rooms that was so stockpiled of guns, it took them, I forgot how long they said before they could actually get back into that room because it blocked the door.
2.5 years or something like that.
So you've seen like how they'll take barreled actions or whatever. They'll take the barrels out of the action of the wood, the stocks, so that they can stack all the barreled actions in like log cabin fire type of stacks, and then they'll stack all the wood like that so they don't all rust and get gross. So I've seen like milsurp stuff stacked like that in long-term storage. He did that in one of the rooms, and then around the perimeter of the room they just had guns like you'd imagine stacked. You lean a gun against a wall and you lean another gun against the wall, and eventually you got the entire perimeter of the walls is guns leaned against the wall. Somebody closed the door of that room, something happened. Did they say what happened? All the guns shifted. They all fell over. So there were so many guns around the perimeter of the wall that they couldn't open that door ever again. So for years, he just left that room have guns in it and didn't even go in there for like years until they decided to take the hinges off the door and get in there.
I wish that was my room.
And the second story, talking about how he got his guns too. He was talking about the toy guns and trading off to some little kid, and the mom ended up pissed off and coming back because she knew the kid got a raw deal on the trade. That was one of the other ones I liked.
I have a room just like that, except it's not guns, it's newspapers. But I'm sure they're going to be worth something one day. That's why I leave them in there.
One day.
I mean, if you're going to be a hoarder, you might as well hoard guns. I mean, that's basically what he was.
Yeah.
Well, it's cheaper to hoard newspapers, so I hoard newspapers. But I could use them to wrap fish. I also hoard fish.
Okay.
There's one room you don't want to go in. Totally different reason. All right. So
It's for a different chat, right?
let's see. So yeah, okay. Well, that was the tour, and that's the whole point of this. Is there was a bunch of people there with cameras. Gary's, I know, has already got some stuff going. Night Strike probably has some stuff. Trying to remember who all had actual cameras running pretty much the whole time. I think Ohio did, and you guys all did. Touch said Clover's got his stuff up, some of his stuff up already. So
right. I've got hours of footage just for the tour.
One of our challenges as a group is going to be to, of course, create a bunch of content individually, but then also collaborate and coordinate, I guess, to keep all of our stuff together and tagged so that we can have it in playlists, put those playlists either on gun channels or someplace else. I'm debating if we want to just do it on gun channels or have a separate just website that's called like the Wanamaker site or something, but we'll have more meetings and we'll talk about all that. But it's going to be neat to see all this content come together and be in one spot so everybody can dig in. And then once we've got all that to present, a nice buffet of content, we'll present that to the Wanamaker. And, potentially if everybody's got business cards and contacts, everybody's contacted and said, hey, thanks for letting me review your holster or your whatever gizmo. And then we can follow up with, hey, and here's a little sample of everything else we did. Hope to meet you next time. And maybe we can impress them to where you guys are getting calls. Like, hey, you're going to be at Wanamaker in November? Be sure to come by,
Yeah, I think that we've got a possibility with as many cameras that we had. I think it's really going to be a cool thing for the next few months to see the amount and the possibility of mass amounts of content that's put out there for the Wanamaker and for the museum to really kind of leave a mark right there on the Wanamaker Gun Show is saying, like he said, I think he even said that a lot of the vendors were telling Carrie in the Wanamaker Gun Show that they were really pleased to see people out there covering it, because for some of these companies, these smaller companies, that this is their SHOT Show. They can't either get in or can't afford SHOT Shows, so this is kind of a big deal for them. So it's a good thing, I think.
I didn't think so, but you made some good points there. I agree now. Thanks. All right, so I don't know what I was coming up with bicker there. Could it have been like bickering at a gun show or something? But that would I would have put haggle. I don't know why. I don't really call that bickering.
Maybe
Are you really
bickering at
trying to
somebody.
read the mind of Bob? I mean, really, are you trying to read the mind of Bob and what he's putting in the notes?
Maybe he just meant like bickering back and forth for 5 minutes or something like that. He's talking about filling up some space.
No, like
But it's under gun tech.
Okay.
You know?
Oh, maybe he had some issue he wanted to bring up.
Bob hasn't written stuff in this thing for a while. I doubt it was Bob.
Oh.
yeah, I just said it to be funny.
It was hilarious.
It was probably like Smeggy talking about dicks on the internet, and he typed that in.
Oh, snap.
So we can do gun history? Sounds good. See, April 27th for some of us, but the 26th, I guess, for some reason we didn't have a show yesterday. Gun possession near schools not restricted. April 26, 1995, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned federal law banning gun possession near schools on the grounds it was beyond the scope of Congress's power to regulate interstate commerce. So at some point before 95, the Supreme Court, or the Congress said it's within their power of interstate commerce to ban gun possession near schools. How the hell would they have come up with that? Anyway, the Supreme Court, I think somebody was saying earlier, slow process. 95, they came along and overturned that ruling, that federal law, and I guess we could carry guns for a minute until they came up with the gun-free school zone act. A few years later, I guess. But it is a piece of history, so I put it in there.
Well, let me ask you this: if Supreme Court overruled saying that was not their place, then how did they allow the Gun-Free Zone Act to go through?
Well, how that happened is they tacked that on to another bill that had to do with drugs and gun violence near and on school grounds. So that was kind of like part of a whole nother thing, and that's how they got it passed through, basically, from my understanding.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. The Supreme Court said it's not okay for this one instance, but since we're going to wrap it in a different wrapping paper this time, it's okay now.
Well, I would wonder too how much of it had to do with maybe just not enough pushback on it. So the Supreme, there really wasn't a scare. Because I mean, you look now when they drop bills and they try to hide stuff inside the bill, and either nobody knows about it, or I guess more or less nobody kind of cares.
That's exactly, from my understanding, that's exactly what it was. Is that it was hidden in a bill that was like, oh, like if you have drugs or gun violence or anything like around this, it was hidden in a bill like that. And that's how they were able to get it through. And then, finally people became aware of it somehow.
Your tax dollars hard at work right there, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's a common trick they use to hide stuff in bills. I mean, like they can hide, stuff that isn't even pertinent to what the bill's about. I mean, in a bill. I mean, isn't that how we ended up off the gold? Didn't they do something like that off the? I mean, they're just famous for that. And who reads? Like I watched the thing that they were talking to like congressmen and stuff, and they get these 400-page bills and all that, and they don't read them. Like they literally read the first page and that's it.
Well, isn't that how we recently got the fixed NICS to go through, and they collected all these other things and created the omnibus? And I mean, there's 2,200 pages of legislation there. So that's omnibus got passed, and amongst that huge document was the fixed NICS.
Oh, I didn't know that. When was this? Recently or what?
Yeah, recently. Yeah. When they passed this big omnibus that they had to get all these different legislations, they put them together in a 2,200-page bill, and they released it like 17 hours prior to it going to the vote on the floor. And part of the omnibus was fixed NICS.
Well, we're not going to be able to solve that tonight, but we can talk about more history. So I'm looking at the non-gun history, just the webpage we look at. It was told off of Ponery. And this one's the 28th. So because it's in New York, it's kind of tomorrow. But or depending on where you are, I guess it's today. But 1788, Maryland became the 7th state to ratify our Constitution. And now they're a bunch of jerks about guns. 1789, so Maryland become a state, or Maryland ratified our Constitution. Then a year later, the HMS Bounty mutinies. So the mutiny on the Bounty. I never thought about that, but that was after Maryland.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. President James Monroe. This was a sad day in 1818. A lot of you don't remember this one probably, but James Monroe, he was our president back then. He proclaimed naval disarmament on the Great Lakes and Lake Champlain. So that's when Canada basically felt like they could do whatever they wanted. I think we should have left naval armament up there. I think we let our guard down too early. Thanks, Monroe.
Well, that's how Bob gets over here.
No, he just walks right across those lakes when it's cold. You know, when it's icy, they just walk right across. There's nothing stopping them. The land bridge. 1902, that's boring. 1960, British declare martial law throughout Ireland. The British are a bunch of jerks. I like saying this. So 1920, Azerbaijan joins the Soviet Union. So nobody gives a shit, but who doesn't like saying Azerbaijan? Like a whole bunch of letters that aren't normally in a word. Mussolini killed by Italian partisans today, 1945. Mussolini killed.
Well done. Well done.
How do you say bravo in Italian? Is that how you say it? Or is there...
Grazie. Grazie.
Right.
Bravo.
Nah.
So this one was impressed because I seen this. I thought I saw a show about this, and maybe I didn't, because it says in 1947, Norwegian anthropologist, some guy, and 5 others set out on a balsa wood craft known as the Kon-Tiki to prove the Peruvian Indians could have settled in Polynesia. I don't know if anybody's seen that before, but they basically sit on a big like raft and just jump on an ocean current and go across the entire Pacific Ocean, the big part of the Pacific. I saw a show about that, and it was pretty neat. So people always kind of wonder how like the Easter Island and stuff got.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I mean, Easter Island is like that's not a simple little boat ride, and they had some pretty non-fancy boats.
Well, that's the thing. It turns out you basically just sit on the water, and you have to have a bunch of balls because you're at the whim of nature. But you basically sit on the water, and it pulls you all these little ports along the islands out there and the different coasts on both sides of the ocean.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. They just like, okay, Jesus, take the wheel. Let's do this.
Kind of. The ocean. Also, at least the show I watched, like the balsa wood craft that they made according to spec, like basically crapped out right when they got there. So like they didn't have a lot of extra boat according to their stuff. So they figured out like just how long it took to get there, and they built enough boat for it. And we got people on weird islands, I guess, that way. 1953, just a couple years after that, peaceful, interesting, like experiment in social sciences, maybe. You get 1953, French troops evacuate northern Laos. So we start the beginning of all that shit.
Yep.
And then the only other kind of interesting thing is 1937, Saddam Hussein was born today.
Oh, good.
You know what day he died?
Probably the same day, wasn't it?
I don't know, but it was the day that he got hung for being a dick, right? So.
Did anybody bring up any of the chats earlier today that seems that North Korea and South Korea have found a little bit of peace today?
Yeah, it was
awesome. As that? I mean, that's the kind of thing that,
we talked about it yesterday, but it was it's like do you see the video for it?
No,
I liked that.
It
awesome.
Is amazing.
Where they're holding hands and everything,
and they're stepping back and forth over the demilitarized zone. Like
they're like
that's
laughing,
crazy,
and smiling.
Crazy.
So
thank you, President Trump.
We're talking a generation of people that have died and never saw that. From the time they were born to they died. Some people never saw a peace in Korea, which is kind of crazy.
1950s, right? We left in 54.
Well, I think it was 50 to 53, maybe 53, 54, somewhere in there. Yeah.
They're talking about ending the Korean War. Actually, I heard that on the news today. Did they? Does that happen today?
Yeah, so you know how they sign that thing and then they exchange them? Like the official thing, they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the peace treaty and declare that they were going to make the entire peninsula nuclear free.
That's
And then they want to unify because the Korean people are meant to be together and not separate.
so. I mean, like
That's what Un said.
a lot of people remember, like when the Berlin Wall came down, and it was pretty exciting for a lot of people. This is on par with that. It really.
Oh
is.
yeah, this is.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely.
really. I mean, because for no other reason, you're basically stabilizing a region of the world that has been unstabilized for 60 some odd years. I mean, it's crazy good.
And think about.
But here's the real question. So, are all those people now gonna know that like movie theaters exist and like, you know, doctors and shit? Are you gonna like basically free your people?
Well, they had movie theaters. They just had only.
Well, yeah, but you know
movies.
how they're like shitty.
Yeah.
Like how everything there is shitty. Like, are you gonna now live? You know, I mean, I'm not saying you're gonna be America, but I mean, are you gonna be like at least one of the Asian countries?
America's going to bring them our sweet, sweet capitalism now.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when all the capitalist countries over there flood in and bring aid to those people, and they all see what it's like that nobody was actually giving a shit about killing them, and then everybody's happy and they have all that potential.
And you can buy like medical marijuana and Xboxes.
They're going to get like a Coca-Cola and flip the fuck out.
Aren't they basically coming from like, you know, the 50s or 60s, basically coming up to now? I mean, obviously they're not 100% 60s, but you know, they're definitely old culture coming up to now. It'll be really interesting. A lot of potential for growth, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's an exciting time for the world to see that, you know, two entities that hate each other forever. You know, it's just like the Berlin Wall or the fall of the Soviet Union. I mean, you're talking about chances of changing the world because these people haven't known anything different for 60 years, and now, like you said, there's literally a whole new world available to them.
I'm not going to give it the significance to the Berlin Wall. That was way bigger consequences for the planet, but I'll give it a giant. I mean, since the Berlin Wall, I can't think of necessarily something as significant.
Well, I think it's. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it's on that same plane where you're talking about a historic event, you know.
But I'm worried about Trump, that he's going to piss off the guy from North Korea, and then we're going to have nuclear war.
That's a whole different issue.
Remember the spoiler, Hillary's going to win or whatever, or spoiler, President Hillary or something, like spoiler, like Trump, whatever. Trump's going to cause nuclear war in Korea.
We'll just airdrop Dennis Rodman again. He'll solve the problems.
Oh yeah, Dennis Rodman. I bet he'll show up.
Dude, Dennis Rodman. I will say, like, before anybody starts patting Trump on the back, Dennis Rodman is the one who needs a lot of the credit too.
You're kidding, or you're laughing, but no, I mean, seriously.
I'm not kidding.
There's a documentary called Double Team about how Dennis Rodman's a CIA spy.
Oh Jesus. He's going to get a Nobel Prize reward, I bet. Almost. I would not be surprised if his name came up as a nomination or in the running.
Somebody who's able to facilitate a trip like that, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that the CIA is going to take them for a bit and give them some idea of how to keep their wits about them and how to get intel.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure, like a briefing or whatever. Sure. But whether or not he's a spy.
Maybe a little more than that. What is a spy? Spy is someone who's aware and has intent and isn't just drifting through some other country. Maybe goes through and collects a little bit of intel, and somebody who you wouldn't necessarily suspect, and someone who's going to have access.
Interesting. I would define it as somebody who partakes in clandestine operations.
Sure.
That sounds like something a spy would say, G-Webs.
He's the guy selling around in a van.
We'll just start calling him Ambassador Rodman.
Spy would also not wear a uniform, not be affiliated with any type of state.
Neither do spies feel the same way. They don't wear uniforms.
No, I said a spy would never wear a uniform. It would be outside of the state.
Yep.
So.
Basically, one of the hosts on the Daily Gun Show is a spy.
I've never done anything out of uniform. All right, so North Korea is going to continue to be communist. So is China, and we're making a lot of money with them. And it's going to be tougher and tougher for them to be old-fashioned asshole communists. I mean, they're communists, but they're not murdering millions of people without any consequence.
Yeah, I don't think that communism that we saw during the Iron Curtain of the Cold War, that sect of communism, I think, is gone. But
It's
the
still
communistic
stomped out.
it's still there, but it's not as militant, I guess.
It's cancerous. I don't like communism, but they're not the communists that were killing people. So if they
Right.
communist, it's still, at least they're not isolated, right? That they're out of isolation is the main thing, and they're not so isolated that they're threatening other people with catastrophic shit.
Well, they're communists in the sense that they're still competing with us. The difference is they're competing with us via capitalism.
Yeah, I think it's more of an economic philosophy now instead of a military philosophy.
Right.
We could have a whole nother discussion on whether or not the Cold War is over and whether or not they're still manipulating things to screw with us. But this is definitely an indication that maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not done as being skeptical.
Well, having more countries doing sweet capitalism type things is good, even to a communist, because they can still manipulate and do whatever it is on their government level, right?
I guess, yeah, that's what I'm saying, I think. Watch any of the range videos and you shall do back on your arm. I don't know what they're talking about over there. Oh, they're talking about shooting a 50?
50?
I guess so. It's too much to read.
Sweet 50?
We are definitely over time now. We had some extra guests on. Again, appreciate everybody who's joined us tonight. We got 30 people watching right now. I'll leave it up to y'all. We got 26 thumbs, so that indicates to me as guy talking here that there's a bunch of people actually paying attention to what we're doing. So we're pretty much done with the segments that we would normally do. We have a gun movie, and since we don't have one listed here, the first person to recommend one over on the gun channel side will be our gun movie today. But I'll leave it up to the guests who are hosting with us tonight, and I'm guessing that Tarda and Ghost will jump back. If you guys want to keep going, we can keep going. If you got wind in you left, otherwise we'll just listen to what the audience is out there saying. Thursday, is that the name of the movie?
Yeah, that'd be a good gun movie to recommend. Thomas Jane, Aaron Eckhart, before they were like really big.
I never seen it.
So I guess technically, even though you outlagged everybody because you heard it and then were able to answer it before they even heard the question, probably.
He typed his own answer and he's on the panel.
Yeah, I'm saying like they probably just now like, why is he typing Thursday? Oh, that's why he's typing Thursday.
But so, today's Friday.
Is this a gun move? It's not like Friday.
No, it's not like Friday, but it has a lot of guns in it. Some really sweet 1911s, like Mac 10s, stuff like that. I wouldn't classify it as a gun movie, but there are definitely guns and gunplay in it. And it's basically like Thomas Jane before he was the Punisher. Like it's, I don't know. It's a really good flick. I definitely recommend anyone check it out. It can be kind of hard to find. I don't think you're gonna find it on Netflix or anything. Maybe Amazon Prime or Hulu or something. But if you look on the internet, you can definitely find it out there on the internet, and it's definitely worth watching, especially if you're a Thomas Jane or Aaron Eckhart fan.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's kind of. I wouldn't classify it as a B movie, but it was definitely a low budget movie that I heard that Thomas Jane and Aaron Eckhart actually basically had to take a cut in salary just to get the movie finished because they didn't even have enough money to finish the movie. They got like halfway through filming it and then ran into money issues. So they basically said, "Okay, you don't have to pay us. We just want to finish this movie because we believe it's so good." So it's kind of like a movie like that. They basically funded the movie by not getting paid to make it. So it's definitely worth checking out.
When you think about 98, there was quite a few interesting movies coming out back in that era. I don't think I've seen this one, though. All right,
Yeah,
so you're
I've
saying
never even heard of it.
so old? It's not like a Netflix, Amazon thing?
No, I have it on VHS, actually. I haven't even found it on DVD. I still have it from VHS, and I never see it play on HBO or anything like that because it was a pretty low budget movie. but it's definitely worth watching. And when you watch it, you would not think it's a low budget movie. It's not corny. It's not like a typical B movie. So it's done very, very well. And it's kind of like what really made Thomas Jane and Aaron Eckhart, in my opinion, really like that's what really blossomed their career, is that movie.
Anybody else seen it?
No, you know I haven't. I don't see anything.
I haven't seen that
Born
one.
then? What else is out there?
I've never even heard of it, so I'll have to go look at it. Yeah.
Josh must have walked away. So this is going to happen. What's the best movie that you can recall that you have only seen on VHS? Or at least that for the longest time was only on VHS? Because I can think of one, and it's technically not available on the internet now, but for years I couldn't find it because it was only an old HBO movie.
Drunken Master.
I remember that one at the VHS Kung Fu section.
One?
Which one?
The Jackie Chan Drunken Master? That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
There was two
Oh,
versions.
That
of
was only
Drunken
on
Master.
VHS forever and ever and ever until they remastered it.
That's a
So I
great
have a
movie.
good one. Dead Alive.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
see, you don't get a wardrobe change. That's where he was.
Dead Alive.
I kicked ass, Lord.
Directed by Peter Jackson. Way
his
before
first
Lord of
movie.
the Rings.
Oh, it was his first
It-
movie. It was the movie that he
it's-
bought his computers for that impressed everybody and that he made the next movie, which made Lord of the Rings.
So good. That movie, you could only get it on VHF. I ended up finding a DVD version relatively recently. Great zombie movie.
Yeah, I
And
don't
funny.
those kind of movies, that's the only one I like of them. It's so hilarious.
It's good and funny. And it's like you know how like a horror movie can either be so funny campy that you can't take it seriously? Like the zombie portions of it are actually pretty good. It's not scary in any way, but it's a very good movie. I don't think there's a gun in the whole thing.
I remember that though, yeah, when all during the 90s, that was the kind of shit you could pull out and just impress everybody because nobody's seen it and you could only get it on VHS still.
Dude.
Do you remember the movie Cloak and Dagger?
Yes.
Yeah.
I used to love Cloak and Dagger.
I didn't love it. I didn't like it that much.
Tag?
Yeah, I used to.
Well, I was a kid when that came out, so that was like, yeah, that was like a great kid movie.
I know another one,
Yeah.
Chud.
I wasn't a fan. of
Chud
that
scared
one.
the shit out of me. That is still one of the scariest movies to this day.
Chud was a
yeah.
VHF, directed VHF movie.
Okay, so Angelina, do you even know what a VHS is? Did you ever have one?
Yeah, actually, that was, a thing when I was a kid, a VHS.
So, movie that you can think of? Probably
A movie that I can think of that I had a hard time finding on DVD was either Mary Martin's Peter Pan or Willow.
Oh, Willow. That gotta be mad DVD coverage, right?
Now, yeah, but that was so I somehow I ended up with this Willow movie when I was a kid, like 8 or so probably, and I fucking didn't want to watch it because it looked weird. Then I watched it, and then we fucking watched it all the time. So I can't even
How about
remember what
Legend?
it's about now. But
Did you see Legend?
no,
Tim Curry is the devil with Tom Cruise.
I have not.
And what's
How
his
about
David Bowie?
that's Labyrinth?
I've never seen that.
We're all the same.
Oh, Labyrinth was awesome. Oh yeah.
Labyrinth is good. You know that all those like the ball manipulation stuff he does in the movie is another dude who's putting his arms underneath David Bowie's armpits.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's another dude's balls.
It's no. Yeah, it's a guy named Michael Motion who did it. He's the contact juggler dude who did all the manipulation ball works. Pretty interesting. How about Phantasm? That's a VHS only movie.
I barely remember that one, but that was one of those horror movies from back in the olden days.
It was
I
Tall
remember
Man.
the kid. He had the Never Ending Story when that was pretty big when I was a kid.
Did you guys ever watch North?
Now
and
we're just
South?
talking about old movies, so not. The reason I brought it up is I thought of one called "The Park Is Mine." It was an HBO movie, and I could get it on HBO, or I could get it on VHS back in the olden days of like way before Blockbuster, like in the olden days of VHS stores. But it was about a guy who came back from the Nam, and he had planned to do something in Central Park and geared up, and then he died, and his friend came along, and there was all this gear there, and he basically took over the park as a way to say, I don't know, protest, I guess. It was not a great plot, but it's some actor running around with AKs in Central Park, and I only got to see it a couple of times, so it was a tough one to find. Jelsma was saying Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man. That was, I guess, one of the tougher ones because, again, it wasn't super popular, so it probably took a while to get DVD'd. Strange Brew. I can remember having that on that's for a while.
Yeah. Spaceballs.
That one had no problem going to DVD. That one's always been super popular.
Really?
Spaceballs?
Yeah. Everyone has a boner over that shit.
See, one it comes to mind that I've never really seen it on DVD a whole lot is Puppet Master. You know, we were talking about the horror movies type stuff.
Do you think some of that stuff, the special effects or whatever, you know, kind of needed to be in the old VHS? You know how like Star Wars, even you watch it in fancy whatever. We got digital now, and everything's shitty because you can see all the special effects happening. It's too
like that's a basketball they blew up.
No, like with the TIE fighters in space, you can see the like masking around them because it's, you know, too detailed now. All of a sudden you can see everything. I wonder if it's like that, like those old horror movies, it just looks too cheesy and people need to lose all the effect if you watch it clear. Kind of like listening to old music, right?
What else?
Well, again, we don't want to go into too many movie things.
Sorry. Yeah, I could go for days.
Somebody's talking about some sheriff out there. What's the deal with that?
There is a dude running for sheriff in Los Angeles County, and he is pro 2A, and he says that basically if you are a legal gun owner, then you are absolutely entitled to a concealed weapons permit in LA County, which is a gigantic step up from what we got right now. This dude is super community oriented. He cares about, you know, the deputies, their families, their morale, their safety. He's been a deputy himself for shit ton of years. So if you are in Los Angeles County, definitely think about Bob Lindsay for LA County Sheriff. I'm not
of winning.
I think he has a good chance as long as people show up and vote.
That's awesome.
He's not. This isn't in my county, so I don't really have a vetted interest in it because I'm Ventura County. But
it's my county.
It's Hosh's county, so we care about Hosh. But you know, I care about our rights as a whole. So my county is a little easier to get a permit in, but it doesn't really happen. And it would be super great for the people of Los Angeles for this dude to get in. And
big anti-gun counties in California are San Diego counties, LA County, and San Francisco, right? So the counties in and around there. So the fact that this is happening in like the heart of anti-gun territory is awesome. Even the fact it's happening.
So in other words, it's not like there's always a pro-gun and he's never got a chance, but he's always there. This is a unique situation where there's even a pro-gun option.
Yes. Yeah. It's Riverside County. They get pro 2A sheriffs a lot. And
so it's possible that people are just numb to the choices being shitty and never even vote and need to be woke up and told, hey, this is an important one. Go vote this time.
You know what? It's a complete recoil to the laws that they put in place in California that criminalized a lot of crimes that people were in jail for, which on one hand reduces the cost of the state. The problem is it pushed all the costs down to the people because crime has gone up across the board in so many cities in LA County. My city being one of them. We're crime rates through the roof.
So what are we talking about here? They're saying that they put a bunch of people out of prison?
Correct. In California.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 bills that were passed in the last 4 years That what they did was they said to everybody, we're just gonna go ahead.
I guess I should have said these are passed by Democrats, and now people are voting Republican just because they're pissed that the Democrats let all the people out.
I think I don't even know that it's Republican or Democrat at this point. They're just pissed that there's they were sold a bill of goods. Everybody was told, hey, we're decriminalizing marijuana crimes, which everybody's like, okay, that's not a big deal because people aren't really, they're not committing, it's like a harm, where's the victim? The problem is that what they also did was they lowered the level from felony to misdemeanor on a lot of larceny charges. So hardcore, very active burglary criminals got let out, and we're seeing highly organized gangs of criminals that are breaking into houses throughout all of LA County and up and down the state. High larceny levels. All the soft crime, the nonviolent crime is way up.
Okay.
Well,
So
to piggyback on what you were talking about earlier about the state of California being a ripple effect across the country, if LA County is able to elect a sheriff that is pro-gun, maybe this is a ripple effect that could help change the face of the Second Amendment in California, possibly.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then just like you say, if it's unprecedented, then at least it's a nick in the foundations that they must assume they have in California.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a telling that the people don't just fall in lockstep with an ideology. They're falling in lockstep with, I don't want my crap getting stolen anymore.
Yeah, I mean, people, it's starting to become like Democrat, Republican. It doesn't really fucking matter.
When it comes to
y'all
crime,
have the castle doctrine in California?
we do.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, we're not obligated to flee if somebody breaks into our home.
Okay, I didn't know if
We
y'all
can't
were
like shoot people in the, you can't do the typical bullshit crap that people postulate, like, oh, I'll shoot them and then drag them in the house. Like, none of that stuff. There's still forensics, but yeah, you can defend yourself if it's truly in your home.
Okay, that's positive at least.
Oh yeah,
but like you can't have a nightstand gun technically in LA County, right?
yeah, you can. I've got it's in a well, no, you can if there's no kids present. Absolutely, you can carry.
If there's no kids, but if you have kids, you have to have it locked and safe all the time.
Yeah, but it's in one of those biometric safes right next to my bed, fully loaded, ready to go. Hell yeah.
I feel bad if the terrorists come in there with one of them cigar cutters, cut your finger off, then they'll have access to that gun.
Oh man, don't say that. You're telling them what to do.
I just instructed them. Now
Oh my gosh.
Or if your batteries die, your power goes out.
It beeps at you before that happens. It's like a smoke alarm.
If Jupiter is in line with Saturn, you won't be able to get that gun out, then you're gonna die.
If Capricorn's in your money house?
Capricorn's in your money house, blue waffles in the sky.
So let's talk.
Something's in retrograde.
Let's talk about that. Let's fund this adventure that we're having. Angelina, you've got patches that are not just theoretical; they're literally dropped. Correct? Are they gone already?
I think there's some left, but there was only 10. I put up 10 for sale today. The rest will be for sale in early May. But yeah, you can there's 10 up there right now. I think a bunch of them are sold, but you might still be able to get one. If not, you have to wait till May. But
the blue waffles sold?
The blue waffles are not all sold out.
Oh, there you go.
The Joiner Die AR-15 patch that a few of you might have seen me make in a lobby, that one's not up yet.
And there's no way that those coupons apply to these things that are dropped.
They might.
What?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to operate my website that good.
So yeah, so you've got some coupon code that you can use, gun channels, right?
Yep, gun channels.
Discounts, appreciate that. The people that do buy them usually post stuff, and that's always cool. Then we get to see the different ways people display them or put them on their panels or whatnot. I saw the neatest thing as I was looking around on just surfing Instagram the other day where this guy had he was doing fish patches and he had like a little hook, like the tip of a rod and then going into a treble hook. and it became like a little hanger, I guess, and you can put patches on it. That was kind of cool.
No, that's cool.
I'm going to try to raise some funds here for heading to Dallas. It looks like Dallas is going to be interesting this year. Hey, Dano, jump back in. You're doing that squirrel thing that happens once in a while. That'll happen on the phone, I think. So, yeah, there's a bunch of people heading to Dallas. The NRA show's coming. I hate to keep going back to the well, so I'll just put it out there that gear website is out there. Recommend it to friends. I got the cards, so I'll be posting those sooner than later. Everything's only 24 hours in a day, but I got pretty much everything done this week, so I'm going to be posting those cards. And maybe there's people out there that that might be interested. They'll be up there for $20, which is not a bargain price, but that's really to keep the tour going. And I do have some people that have shown interest in it and have expressed encouragement that they might be able to help me get the word out there. So I might be putting together a new leg here and, theoretically coming up with a route. We kind of played with that. Did we do that? Like, I don't remember if we did it in a dedicated chat or if we did that in a lobby, but stay tuned for that. And hopefully things will happen here over the weekend since NRA is coming up in a week. Hosh, how'd the ham radio show go today? I guess I missed it.
Well, it was good. It went way long. I like the kind of fast-paced talking about all the fun stuff, but sometimes you just got to slog through some of the textbook stuff, and that's kind of what we did. We talked a lot about electrical circuits and components, all the things that you need to pass the test to get your general license.
Right on. I've been playing around after I was talking yesterday. I played around with the ham radio stuff a little bit too, and I never realized that the what's after general, the
extra
or extra. Is there really 700 questions on that?
No, the question pool is 700. I believe the actual test you take is 45 questions, randomly selected.
But there was like 90, and we only had to answer 30 for technical, right? So 700 is
400 in general, I believe. And then they have 35 random selected. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different categories, and they randomly select a couple of questions from each category, and that's the test.
Oh, I thought it was much fewer than that. Okay, so that just seemed like a lot to me, but I guess it's only twice as many, not even twice as many as technical.
Much harder, though.
Yeah.
Hard.
Okay. So, and then, yeah, we had bullshitting last night, and Hosh is doing the ham tactical, and we were BSing, so I fell asleep yesterday, and that's why we didn't do the show. So I was wide awake when everybody else went to bed. I stayed up and
yeah, I stayed up way too late talking to you last night.
Yeah, but it was a good chat and catch up on various projects and stuff. And it's good to hear that the ham radio stuff's going so well. I mean, there's so many positive things about ham, really. But anyway, I put together some patches and sewed them out. That was a good thing. And I did it all live, so hopefully we can take some video and time compress it down and make it useful for you as like a time lapse. Here's our design or something.
Dude, it came out great, by the way. That was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, they're not quite finished. There's some little tweaks and stuff, and I'm not quite sure. Your logo is black and white. I don't know if you wanted color in there or not. So we'll talk off air if there's some tweaks or whatever. But now we've got an embroidered file, so maybe somebody will get a machine. I guess I have to talk about that. Yeah. And then, or if nothing else, we can send that to one of our talented friends.
Attaches.
Is grayscale like really hard to do?
What do you mean?
Well, as far as like a patch, like black and white and gray.
Yes.
Versus color.
Embroidered or PVC?
Well, I mean, like look at my gun. It's not just black and white. It's black, white, and gray.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know. You've seen what patches can do. There's the type that you print, it can do anything. But as far as thread, thread has to be a color, so it could be
because it's a fade effect.
It's not really a fade, so I guess it's possible. I don't know. It can. I don't know. I never attempted it in black and white. I think I tried Gerks, about the closest thing to that, and it came out shitty. But that was also the first time I ever tried anything back when we first got the sewing machine.
Yeah. Because I just always assumed that like my little Glock gun was just more of a pain in the ass than it was worth, certainly.
You know what's impossible is the old one. You're old.
Oh yeah, and that I get because of the variation of the color is just too much.
Yeah, because it's basically I tried to do a paint by numbers, and it was just impossible with like 1,000 different shades. And then I tried where you get the thread that changes, like it has different colors in it, right? So when you sew with it, it becomes molted different colors, and that looked even worse. I don't know how that happened, but it looked horrible.
Right.
Anyhow, so where the hell were we at with all that?
You were talking about how you were making patches in general, and then you talked to Hash about his, and then I asked the question.
Right on. We were talking about the ham radio thing, and we finished up saying we're going to talk about the patches off air or whatever. And then Tardot, you got shows coming up tomorrow, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I do. I got Clearing the Chamber tomorrow at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't really have a topic set yet, but I'm going to try to start making the show a little more lighthearted, like every other week, do something that's a little more lighthearted topic. Talk about whatever guns we carry, guns we, maybe keep at the bedside, or gun storage, just different things like that.
Night Strike's always saying he doesn't have topics either, and this made me, when you said that, it reminded me that I don't do it enough, but I have our show notes on a Google shared document, like a shared spreadsheet. And back when I was moving and shaking faster, I would, whenever I would come up with something like, oh, we should do that on the show, I would take a second, go to the document on my phone, open it up, put that note in there, even if it was in the wrong place, and then say, close it. And because it's a shared doc, it immediately saved. And then whenever I did go back to the page to do something like official, to set up a show or something, it would remind me that I wanted to add that element. So just throw that out there. Maybe if you don't use it for your show notes, but just have like an email or something on your phone that you open up on Monday, and then address it to yourself. And then when you get ideas and stuff for your shows, you send it to yourself, or put all these notes in there and then send it to yourself or whatever, or you just leave it as a draft, right? It doesn't matter. And then you've got your notes. And then if you don't use them, you got them next week or 6 weeks from now.
Yeah, and I usually revert back. I'm kind of old school. I usually like, for some reason, handwriting a lot of stuff. I've got a little notebook floating around that I've got all kinds of show ideas and video ideas that I've been just jotting down gradually. And it's my go-to whenever I'm like sitting there trying to come up with something. It's my go-to to go back and find out, okay, what was I thinking back then?
I used to do that. I used to have the little, the size of a pack of cigarette type of little notepads back when I used to do real work and be running around. I'd be on a roof or something, and just a pen and a little spiral notebook, to write down the 4 things I needed. So when I went down there, I was not going to forget one of them and have to walk back up on the roof. So, just every kind of note. I'd be in school and writing notes in there, and I would fill it up and then throw it in a pile, and I probably still have most of those somewhere. Do you guys ever go back, if you did that kind of stuff, do you ever go back and look at those old notes to see if there's anything salvageable out of all that?
All the time, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 Now I feel like I should go back more often and see if there's something salvageable out there. Damn it.
I like the idea of also just like asking your audience, hey, if there's any like show topics you want me to do or touch on, like just post a comment down below. And then that way you're kind of giving your audience what they want to see, right? Like, so I would be asking my audience like, hey, like, what do you want to see from me? And I think that's a good way to get ideas for shows and stuff, because then you're giving them what they want.
When we do that, they just say boobs. So
Yeah, it's very much audience dependent as far as, how much free work you can get them to do for you.
Like giving you boobs for free?
No, like giving you topics that you actually have expertise on to talk about.
Boobs.
I mean, boobs are good, but unless you're a boob channel, it's really kind of out of my lane.
I don't care.
Personally, I like getting into chats, and even with my own, where I may or may not have some knowledge in that area. Because when you don't have the knowledge in the area, you tend to bring up a lot of questions. So it tends to drag the chat out and put some information.
Well, yeah, but then you end up getting, unless you have somebody who's a pseudo subject matter expert, you end up getting a lot of half-assed guesses. Depends on the focus of the show. If that's the focus of the show, then I guess that's a fit.
Well,
If
sometimes it's
Tuesday
okay
night
to
at 9,
speculate on stuff. It's okay to speculate on stuff as long as you're not telling your audience like, "Hey, this is the end all be all." But it's okay to speculate, not to really know about a subject and speculate about, oh, maybe they're doing this because of this type of thing. Like that's okay.
I guess I'm talking about technical things that have actual answers versus speculation of what's going on over in the Middle East.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No, I agree with you there, and that's
Well-
why I do like having some on the show that I can either draw from for some answers.
Well, okay, so I think since we're just BS and a little BS, so not being subject matter experts. I get people from both sides of the position, I guess, who come to me because I'm running gun channels or whatever, and they'll give me their satisfaction or most often dissatisfaction with that whole thing. So, okay, so everybody comes to everything at some level, right? Or some time in their life. And some people are familiar with the stuff when they come to it, some people are not, and everybody's got their own motivation and everything. But even if it's a chat where a bunch of inexperienced people are speculating about what might be good or something, or I don't think there's too many things that, like, I think maybe I'm thinking of something different than what Dano is. But there's very few things I think that have an actual answer when we're talking about firearms. For example, what's the best caliber? What's the best gun to carry? Right? Those are very open. So those kind of discussions can go on. But even if they seem kind of futile to somebody who is aware of the subject and has seen it before, think about the manufacturers. Think about the marketing people or the people who are out there creating new content. When they watch a conversation amongst people that are truly interested in the topic, they don't necessarily need to be qualified experts to be interested in the topic. That's going to give those people who are aware of it and watching it, even if it's just to browse it, to get glean some info from it, some idea of, again, like Night Strike, like Dead Horse was saying. Oh man, sorry, Dead Horse was saying some insight as to what people might be interested in or what they are lacking, what some content that would be relevant for their growth or their knowledge. But at the time, I guess you could say it's futile if it's just complete speculation, I guess.
Well, I think you also have to understand is what we think is interesting in a show may not be interesting for everybody watching. So every now and then it's nice to do a different kind of show where you might bring a whole different audience that said, I really don't like all of the Second Amendment stuff, but I love talking guns, just talking guns. And so I think it's nice to have a different way for your audience to grow a little bit. And sometimes speculation is what drives the conversation. It's everyone's opinion, and it's not facts and all that. So I think that's always a good thing.
And I think that there are some topics that lean themselves towards what you're talking about. Example, what's a cool gun? That is something that is not fact or fiction. It's totally up to the individual as to what's desirable or not desirable versus what is a reliable and dependable gun. That's a whole nother discussion, and there are right and wrong answers.
Well, yeah, but I mean, also we're not. The problem is that if we can't talk about it unless we've conducted double blind, scientific experimentation, then we can't really have much discussion, right?
But that's not necessarily true because you don't. As an example, there are plenty of FBI tests as well as field stuff that's come back from actual crime results where you can leech off certain tendencies of certain platforms, regardless of what they are, whether it's a gun, a caliber, or something else, some sort of tool in the process, a holster.
Yeah, but things have changed.
How often did an officer have a difficulty getting out of his holster, or it became locked, or it became something else?
And that's a show that no one will watch if you sit there and quote FBI stats the whole time.
Well, right, but I was answering Hash's questions about we don't have to have double-blind studies about everything because this stuff is relatively available if you're willing to look.
Right, but some of the information contradicts itself, right? So you've got what FBI was 40. Oh no, now they're going 9, or they were 45 before. Well, why'd they change? Oh, because of this. It depends on what side you want to take. People still look at that information. They go, well, I think they should have stayed with 40. Oh no, I like 9 because they have more bullets. Like you can have all kinds of bullshit discussions on that kind of stuff.
Well, and really think about it.
Just as much as that selection was not based off of pure science. That was based off of personal preference by the administrators in addition to science. Otherwise, it would be logic and reason, in which case they could then make a decision whether it's now or in the past. but they used more than just logic and reason. They also used, well, what's your impression of Smith & Wesson, just as an example. If you're a high level in the process decision maker.
Well, and what I'm getting at with the show too is, like, I'm talking like every other week, dude, just a fun little topic when I talk about that is, think about all these chats that we do and we've been in. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't need to talk about the Second Amendment side. I know we do. And, on a lot of my chats, we've done it a lot. But when we get into those conversations where we have a show and we talk about the best caliber or, best platform, we had one of the Clover shows where we were doing the top 5 of each, different category. That's some of the most fun we have. And you get a lot of interaction from your chat on that. And you get a lot of just different opinions. Sometimes you get a lot of the same opinion, but even though we'll sit there and argue it, it'll end up being, we will argue till we're blue in the face. You'll have your 1911 guys that just argue that till they're blue in the face, but we still have fun arguing it.
And you've now said it twice. In essence, you're saying it's a fun topic. So facts need not enter the conversation. The whole point of it is to have a fun conversation. As long as it's preferenced, like again, 1911 versus, I don't know, whatever, Glock or something else. When it's a fun conversation, it's not intended to be a scientific or a right versus wrong. Or what do the stats say? What are the results from the field?
Damn. I would like to think that no chat that we should never have a right or wrong chat. It's when you have 5 or 6, 7 panelists, even a simple question is their opinion. So I think that's what makes the shows great, is if you can get enough panelists with different opinions, then that's representing the whole crowd. Is not everyone's going to feel the same way about calibers, or whether it's a semi-auto or a revolver or bolt action versus AR. I mean, you have different opinions, and that's what makes the chats great. Is you try to represent everybody who could be watching, so that everyone feels like they have a voice on the panel.
But there are facts in each one of those.
So what about this?
Reloading.
What about this aspect to it? Think about how many people are participating in these chats. There's 27 people watching us. Even if we're all watching it, that's still like 20 people out there watching this, right? So these are people that are paying attention to a conversation that's pretty much mostly two-way, except for when it gets off topic every once in a while. But whenever there's a situation at a gun show or a range or the water cooler and there's a gun conversation, these are hopefully a bunch of people that are going to jump right in. I jump right into any gun conversation with anybody. So if nothing else, we're gaining comfort and whatever, ease with these topics. So hopefully that'll reach, the whole tell a person and stuff. Maybe we have a conversation, somebody overhears it, and they go, wow, that's interesting. I never even thought about all that nuance to this topic. And then they go research a little bit.
Exactly.
He's not allowed to business over him.
I think when you start talking facts and fine points that are regulated by statistics and all of that, I think people get bored with that. I think they can do that research on their own. They want to hear what other opinions are, or, anti-facts is, yes, there's a fact that the ballistics, of this caliber versus this caliber says the FBI says is a more proficient caliber. I want to sit there and say, yeah, but I don't like that caliber, so I'm going to use this one. And that's where the facts, I think people feel like they're being preached at when you start talking too much facts. That's what I love about some of the chats out here, is you don't preach to people. You speak your opinion. You have your guests speak their opinions, and then the people that are watching can walk away from that chat and saying, you know what, I've heard 3 different opinions. I'm going to go do my own research, like G said, and come up with my own opinion. And I think that's what you got to do, is you got to give them food for thought. Don't preach at them with facts. You got to preach an idea. And if you put enough ideas out there, then that's what makes a community grow better, because everyone gets interested about finding their own ideas.
Well, and that gets into what kind of show is it? And I'm gonna say there's basically 3 types of show, although the second one is the most broadest angle. Is there's entertainment, then at the other extreme there's scientific level stuff, and then in the middle is a combination of those two. Is it some level of entertainment with some level backed up by facts and reason? And, or, but if you're doing a purely entertainment, then you're right, it doesn't matter. I don't mean you personally. I just mean if somebody's doing a show.
Well, yeah, but also keep in mind that there are many options that get you most of the way there for most people. So when it comes right down to it, the anecdotal differences are what make people decide what they feel more comfortable about.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So the difference between a Glock and a SIG, we could probably talk about it ad nauseum. But for a lot of people, it might not matter that much, and it's whichever one they literally feel better in their hand, or whichever caliber fits better in a holster that they're going to carry. It's subjective and different, and so you can't just have fact or large agreement. You also have to have personal preference. And so, hey, I'm a little bit larger dude, and when I carry this gun in this holster, it works better for me. But when I do it with this one, it's not as nice. I don't carry it anymore. Well, for you, that might not match. You may not have the same body type as me, but other people watching might agree.
But that's
there's a lot of things. Also, I've never seen.
Yeah, but that's anecdotal information, right? It's my one gun and my one body, and it's an anecdote of a total swath of people, right?
And I watch a lot of shows, and I sit on a lot of shows. And I don't remember a time I've been, not a long time, but in all the shows that I've been doing lately and for a while, I've never had anyone ask the chat, hey, so what's the ballistic difference between this, and this? They say, hey, which caliber do you prefer? And they don't necessarily want the facts. They want your opinion. Like I said, they can go look up the facts anytime they want, but they're kind of they want to hear what other people think, because they might be looking for suggestions, not the ballistic coefficients of this round,
Well, the way I look at it is that
there's people that want to look at the evidence and then make up their own mind based off of reason and logic, and there's people, and this is not a put down, that want to be led to someone else's answer.
Well, the way I look at it is that you got speculation, opinion, and fact, right? Speculation would be like, I don't own either of these two guns, but I think gun A is better than gun B because of these reasons. Opinion would be, I own both of these guns and I like gun A better because of these reasons. And
they're both opinions.
Fact would be, I own 10 of each of these guns and I put them through all these scientific tests, and out of this large sample size, continually this gun performs better. That's the way I look at it. And when you go to facts, I mean, hardly anything is a fact. I mean, like, really everything's kind of up for opinion and debate and speculation. There's very few facts when it comes to the gun world.
Needing a laboratory at all. I'm talking example, like the things that you mentioned, Dead Horse, or referencing other studies that have been done by other people.
Yes.
I'm not saying you need to reference, but it's like, I hate to, if I won't do it. If somebody comes in here and says, well, everybody knows the FBI says blank. Well, no, everybody doesn't know. So you better be willing to say, well, it's on this website. You don't need to tell them verbatim what the results of the study and what was the size of the double blind study or any of that. But you need to be able to say it's over here to substantiate what you're saying. Otherwise, it's hearsay.
But sometimes hearsay is okay.
Yeah, exactly. So if I go to buy a birthday card for my aunt, I go into the Hallmark store, wherever the hell you buy cards at, and I go, I need a card for my aunt. And she goes, like, they're over here or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to know, like, the history of cards or have some, like, vested interest in any one way that cards are folded, or there's, like, some, ethics of which card I should send to my aunt for whatever reason, or if there's some code with the flower color.
That's aesthetics. And you're absolutely right.
Scientifically, this card has been found to make ants happier than this other card.
Right. But again, that's aesthetics, much like, clothing. I mean, we're talking about personal preferences.
So sorry, again, attack me for the choice of example I used. But if you understand the concept I'm trying to get across, that sometimes you just need an expert or someone who knows a bit of what's going on to guide you to what you need so that you can move along. Like maybe paint I should use or something. Like, sometimes you don't need to be an expert on paint. You can trust the hardware store guy to give you set you straight for this task. You're not painting the space shuttle, you're painting your barbecue. So
except that your barbecue is not going to save your life.
Yeah, neither is that gun. So you're going to put ultimate decision or ultimate whatever consequences on these decisions, Daniel. I guess I was going to follow up with, name one person. Do we even know anybody that's bought a gun? Seriously, do we know anybody that has a gun? So we buy guns, and I was going to say this to you guys that have to talk to people who have been around guns a long time, and you feel like their expertise is driving you nuts or whatever, and their suggestions because they know better. Seriously though, they know better than you, and your suggestions are getting frustrated because your suggestions are all getting shot down. Ask them what their first gun was, because very rarely did people, especially people that have owned guns for a while, we didn't just jump in buying Glocks, because Glocks didn't exist back then. So we all had a bunch of dumb, stupid guns, and that's why we can tell you that the dumb, stupid guns route is boring and lame, and you're just going to spend a lot of money on dumb, stupid guns. But a lot of people need to buy your dumb, stupid guns, and then eventually you get to the point where you're like, I'm done buying these things. I don't have the money to waste. I'm sick of playing with them. What works? Or maybe you never get to that point. Maybe you just love buying different kind of guns for different reasons. But all I'm saying is very rarely do we buy one gun and they're done. We buy one gun and then we make a decision. We learn a lesson and we buy another gun, and then we buy another gun to go in a direction, and we buy another gun to go in a different direction. So let's not make our discussions so consequential that everything has to be to like the ultimate purpose of self-defense. A lot of times we just talk about what the hell looks fine or what feels comfortable, because some of these guys, maybe you're not one of them. I know you're not one of them, Dano. These guys like to acquire, and they're still in the fun of acquiring.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's some things like, again, color of the gun. I mean, that's merely opinion, and whatever is the right answer for you is the right answer for you.
So, like, if Massad Ayoob, right, Massad Ayoob saw a gun, sight unseen, just kind of knew, saw it in a magazine, or maybe saw it at a SHOT Show and said, that gun's probably a piece of shit. Would you believe him?
Yes.
So I would too. Has he done any study? Double blind? Not. Does he need to do a study? Probably not, because the dude's wise. So at a certain point, I get that there's studies you can reference and cite and information you can reference, but at a certain point, like, the individual has the capability of using their wisdom, acquired knowledge through doing, or acquired knowledge through reading lots of studies, and can say, in general, some of these things that I'm seeing here doesn't add up. I'm guessing this gun's a piece of shit. You don't need to have a study. Doesn't need to have a piece of information. Doesn't need to reference it. Just say, hey, no, I've shot a lot of guns. Right? I mean, would you agree with that or no?
Let's talk about the shotgun AR-15, 12 gauge AR-15. It's like on their 5th version of trying to push that on our commercial market. They've been pushing that thing since then, the beginning of the 2000s, and it just keeps coming back every couple of years. After some point, you can go, oh, that's that AR-15 that they bring in from Turkey with new designs every couple of years, and nobody buys. Sort of like that restaurant that never stays in business. Nope, this one ain't going to stay in business either.
Well, I think kind of getting back to the initial thought about what we went down this rabbit hole is we're talking about shows, and I think that the whole point is what someone brought up earlier. These shows we put on are entertainment for a lot of people, and 90% of it is entertainment. Do we need to have some facts? I mean, obviously we don't want to just sit there and blow shit out our asses and make stuff up as we go, but I think a lot of it is we do have a responsibility to give our opinions. People watch our shows for our opinions. If they don't like our opinions, they'll go find someone else to watch. So I think a lot of it has to be based on our opinions and how we feel about things, not necessarily about the facts, because people don't necessarily care about the facts. They want to know, hey, what's G shooting? What is G like? Well, G doesn't like the 9mm or whatever. He doesn't, people sit there and say, they'll joke about that. But that's the part of the entertainment side of this is we're here to pass knowledge on, but more importantly, we're there to start more conversations. We're there to plant seeds in people's heads. Go do your own research. We're here to help you draw that line, but we're not here to preach to people. I don't feel like I am, at least. And there might be other people might be out there to do that. I'm not here to preach to you. I'm here to give information that I find relevant, that I find interesting, and my opinion, and whether you believe that or you trust that or you like that is up to you. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch my show. But I think that that's the whole thing is giving our own opinions.
And Ghost, I'm sure that you appreciate it when someone does have a different opinion
I
and might come back at you with that different opinion, and then it might make you look at something from a different side that you didn't even think about before. Like, oh wow, I didn't even consider that, right?
I
And
love. I mean,
yeah,
some of my
so I
best
think
shows have
most
been
of us
lately
look
when we were
forward to
playing
that.
devil's advocate. I love devil's advocate on me because that's awesome. It makes me think about it. Absolutely, I love that.
So let me
And
ask
I
a
think
question.
most people do. I really do. I think most people appreciate that when it's not like in a vulgar way directed at you, when it's a legitimate, thought out, question, and that makes you look at something from a different side or a different angle. I think I think most YouTubers or content creators really appreciate that.
So Dano, did we molest your original point? Would you like to restate it? If we, I'm serious. Like we went back and forth a bit, and maybe now you want to restate it. I don't know.
I know my point was simply my opinion on the basic types of shows, and that depending on the topic dependent, what's appropriate is not the right word, but what might fit well in one show may not fit well in another show, because they don't necessarily fit cleanly into those three topics, especially the center one, where it's a combination of entertainment and actual facts, information that we know, like different types of steel in a knife, just as one point. But that's it.
Wrong person, disregard.
New phone, who dis? That feels very differently from where we started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Dano's question is a white jumpsuit, and Hosh permanent markered the shit out of it.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand because I get what you're saying. There's avenues and the right time for all those different pieces of information, whether it's substantive based off of fact and studies, or it's wisdom based, like my Masad Ayub example, or it's just cult of personality. This
Because
is my
how somebody
anecdotal evidence.
Let me just throw this out there, and I don't know what made me think of it, other than I'm going to throw this out there because at some point we got to move discussion on it. Is the show, and we can keep going. I just don't want to turn it into just too long in one direction of a topic like that. But Steven's saying stat sheets are readily available online. Hosh, Dano, Moon, Dead Horse, really? I mean, dudes, we've been chatting like this for freaking 5 years plus, maybe longer if I really thought about it. And some of you people out in the audience right now, 29 people watching us in the middle of the night on a Friday. That's pretty cool. But at the same time, we're like, I guess there is an element that we're doing this for entertainment, but I'm certainly not doing this for entertainment. I quit doing anything online as entertainment strictly a long time ago. My goal is to inspire and to enhance other people's projects. I really do think that information is better from the ground up, and I want to do everything I can to facilitate that. So when Steven said stat sheets are readily available online, these conversations that we have, they don't really result in much more than what we each take away from it. And unfortunately, because they are more recreation for most of us than anything else, we're doing it while we're doing other things, while we're distracted, while we're passing out and going to sleep for the evening, while we're about to go to work, right? Very rarely, though, is there a product of our conversation. So, when we were kids, we'd have scribes in our scout troops, and that was somebody who was tasked. It was a shitty job. Like, no one wanted to do it, really. Every once in a while, some kid wanted to do it, but most of the time, it was a shitty job you had to do, and it was part of your dedication to the troop that you did it. And when we'd have bullshit sessions, their job was to keep track of it all, and it was part of all of our learning experiences as kids growing up, that you can do things frivolously or you can accomplish it when you have conversations. So maybe we can do something like that, add some element. I know Dano's sounds like you're urging, you strive towards having useful, relevant conversations, right? So maybe that's something we can do, is work towards creating things when we have these conversations, not necessarily structured, but if we have something available to us, and I've got 300 something websites, if people wanted to help edit those, for example, and some night people got together and said, hey, let's figure out all the Glock numbers, or let's try to decipher what SIG stuff is, or let's get into the history of CZs or something. And everybody got in and just took their editor password and ganged up on a website. And some evening, everybody kind of just discovers what's out on the internet and accumulates it in one place. Maybe we could do that on Gun Channel somewhere. Maybe just something as simple as writing some notes to some of these conversations so that they have, again, some kind of a consequence, some sort of a product. And then once we have something, we can figure out what to do with it. Maybe a newsletter, some of the crazy ass topics that happened this week. I imagine that would be pretty crazy for people that read.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the fact that you're talking about the scribe, because I think we're all scribes. I think right now we are putting out information on a nightly basis, sometimes 5, 6, 7 shows a night on a nightly basis. I think we are all scribes of the gun community in the Second Amendment, because if someone was to come in 20 years ago and find all these different YouTube gun chats, we are scribes as to where the gun community is in today's society. So I think that's very important to remember also, is we do, not everyone watches this live. Some might watch this show 5 years down the line. And that kind of gives them an idea of where we were in the state of the gun community in 2018. So that's very important to remember as well.
God, that's crazy, dude. That's crazy. And what's even crazier is there's going to be a computer, some optical, what are those computers called? Quantum computers that will not only listen to every one of these, it'll know what the hell we're about to do whenever it is it figures all that out.
No, I don't. That's scary.
Let's just hope that it's a couple of years from now so we have time to regroup.
I've been able to hide in the wide open as of, a couple months ago. So that's scary for that concept.
So this has been an interesting daily gun show. I really appreciate everybody. Do we want to keep going? It's definitely running a while, but all we're doing is
but I have to get to bed. I got to be at work in about 5 hours. But yeah, I've been awesome.
Move to a lobby maybe. Because
I got a hard off when the family gets home, but I'm around.
All right, well, let's move it over to Ellis's. He's probably doing his late night gig. I'm pretty sure Edge is probably over by now, but head over to Gun Channels. You don't have to go home, but how did that card? You don't have to go home, but you can't stay.
But you can't stay here.
So we do appreciate the 20-something, 28 people actually that are watching right now. The 34 thumbs up shows that the people are active, and again, we appreciate that as human beings. It lets us know you're out there, and it's a simple way to let us know that you're actually alive out there. We encourage you to do that at every show, especially gun-related shows. The logarithm is a listening to what we do, and we can either sit there and do nothing, or we can poke that logarithm and make it do our bidding. We talked about Tardot. Dano, do you got anything coming up? You got anything going on? Any ideas?
Right now I got just a few more or some more Instagrammies that'll be coming.
Right on.
At the moment.
Yeah, you've been doing pretty kick-ass for somebody who wasn't necessarily an Instagram dude. You're not like, Moon or something running around. Doing a pretty good job of giving detailed inside pics of some of those guns that you only really see the outsides of ever.
Yep, try to take advantage of the Wanamaker and the resources there. My only regrets there's all the ones I missed that I saw from other people that were at the show. It's like, how did I miss those?
Ghost, talk about what you got coming up. You said you're going to work tomorrow?
Yeah, I've got to work and got to pay the bills somehow and all that. But no, I've got a bunch of J.M. Davis stuff. I've got a bunch of Wanamaker stuff. I've got 4 or 5 product reviews I still got to get out. So I'll have a bunch of stuff be pushing through the next month, and I'm really looking forward to NRA because I've already got 3 or 4 appointments set up. So yeah, I got a bunch of stuff coming down the line.
Still doing the live show on Tuesday this week with all the travel and everything?
Yeah, still going to do Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I've got a buddy of mine that I actually met at Wanamaker. He was a vendor at Wanamaker, and we've been talking a lot, and he's a former ATF agent and served a lot of warrants. He's going to talk about the whole process of how they do that stuff. So, interesting show.
Thanks. Okay, that'd be interesting. Dead Horse, you've been doing the show and tell?
Yeah, show and tell Thursday nights. But the thing I really want to mention is UgeTube, which is ugetube.com, has gone completely open. So like not just firearm content, like anything you can upload on there now, any kind of content creators for anything. And they are working on live stream, and that should be up next month. And I also heard GunTube has a live streaming capability now, but it's 3 hours or less. And then the one thing that I'd really like to mention is that I'm starting a social media awareness campaign called Save the Library of Alexandria. And what I mean by that is that there is a lot of YouTube content creators who have passed away or who are just no longer doing it. And there's a lot of good YouTube firearms content. And with YouTube ripping all this stuff down, with these people who have passed away and whatnot, if they rip that down, it's gone forever. So if you have a favorite firearms channel that is no longer uploading content or maybe passed away, download those videos, save them, save the Library of Alexandria.
Did you come up with this, or is this a campaign?
Yes, I came up with it.
That's a really good.
Freaking
That's
awesome. And I think that's
awesome.
something that everyone needs to be talking about, because that is a freaking brilliant point. Look what they're doing to Matt, and he's kicking. We don't even know what's happening to dead channels.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So if you don't have to go out there and download everything. Just find your favorite stuff. Like if there's a channel that you watch that had really good videos and stuff, and he's no longer doing it or passed away or whatever happened, save that info, download it. There's a lot of apps you can download and stuff that'll let you download right from YouTube. Save that content so you can share it and put it back up later on a platform like UGEtube or something like that. So hashtag Save the Library of Alexandria. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Good idea.
Very good. Angelina talked about the patches. You're going to have a great vacation, and hopefully you'll check in.
I will check in. I will post on the Instagrams, and I'll maybe do a couple, which we call them, like kamikaze gun show loophole tours.
Right on. I don't know why you're going to call it that.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound right. I just like that it sounded cool.
Like to promote the shop, not burn it down.
We'll call it the Divine Wind gun show loophole.
Like the unauthorized gun show loophole tour wing.
Okay. All right. So then with that, we do have, it is still free patch Friday, at least in Arizona. So if you want to buy stuff over at the store, throw free patches at you. As a saying, thanks for buying stuff on Fridays. I'm going to have some water burger patches coming. Can't sell them, but I can give them to people who I'm shipping stuff to anyway, right?
Wait, whoa. What?
You spelled it a legit way. Why can't you sell it?
This is Friday. I got to do free patch Friday stuff today.
Wait. Did you say Whataburger?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
All right. So then that'll be coming. And for the month of April, anybody who buys the one of the bayonets is getting a patch that goes along with it, which I don't like making. So they're not going to be available all that long. And I appreciate everybody that's supporting us with the purchases at the store. It's literally keeping us going, and we're efforting towards getting people more aware of our projects and coming up with strategic ways to grow gun channels so that it doesn't turn into just sprawl, right? We don't want a suburban nothing. We're not trying to build the Mall of America. We're trying to build, NORAD, right? We want to build something that'll last through any kind of Hillary in office.
Yes.
This word.
Huh? What?
But how dare you speak those words? Hillary in office? Ooh, I just cringed.
Bill Dog.
You're a Marine. Got to handle that.
Yeah,
right.
well, you know.
For a dang thing over here, and I'll just go with one of our old standbys over here. Does anybody have a quote? Maybe I'll ever quote anybody?
Guilty feet have gotten over them. George Michael, Careless Whisper.
GunWebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching GunWebsites.com.